So welcome back to Finding Your Way with Lori and Tonya. We are super excited that you have joined us. If you are a new listener, we promise you're here for a reason. We are glad you found us. And if you have listened to us before, we thank you for continuing to do so. You know, Lori and I get so excited about sharing our journey from where we were to where we are and where we're hoping to be down the road. It's a continuous journey. So today we're going to talk about a very simple but very, very, very profound equation that we were introduced to that we use all the time, but honestly had never thought about until we heard it. And then we were like, it was like the light bulb, an aha moment, right?
Yeah, so Tonya and I both are notorious for wanting to control the situation. We're a little bit control freaks, and for the majority of both of our lives, like we're very driven and get things done and take charge. And so, we like control. We like to be able to steer in the right direction and have that authority to do so. And so when we heard this, it was like, oh, we do have the power. Oh, we do have the control. So basically it's an equation called E plus R equals O, which only stands for an event plus your response to that event equals the outcome you're going to get. And so when you look at that, you really can't change the events. Life happens. There's going to be good days, bad days, everything in between days. There's going to be things that happen on a small scale, big scale, sad things, happy things, all the things. And so we can't control that. That's life. That's our life experience as we go through events. And we can't control that, but we don't need to, because what we can control is our response and how we then respond to the things that are happening in our lives. And that's what we can use to steer that outcome to a more pleasant and positive experience for us.
Well, and I think prior to this, prior to starting the work and doing the work, we were not responding. At least I wasn't. I'll speak for myself. I was not responding. I was reacting, right? So everything that was happening in my life, I reacted to it. There was no thought in it. It was gut. It was immediate. It was, and so the outcome I was getting was not pleasant most of the time. It was sometimes I would have a good reaction or a decent reaction because I was a little more positive just in general as a person as a whole. But when we realized that if we would take a minute and not react, but take a minute and respond. It's 3 seconds, literally. Like it didn't even have to be that long. But take a minute before you react and respond, because that is where the control is. And we were both, when we realized this, we were like, wait a minute, what? It just makes such sense, right? So you can have an event in your life. Can be something simple as your car being towed, right? So your car gets towed and your immediate reaction is, oh my God, it's anger, it's money, it's inconvenience, it's all of these things, right? But if you take a second and you can't change that happened, what you can change is how you react or how you respond. And so the initial reaction is going to give you negative and bad, and you're internalizing and you're thinking about all the things now you can't afford and all the things now that you can't go do. But if you take a minute and be just, I've got a car, like at least I have a car. I mean, so take a minute to respond. That's going to be out there, because the outcome is really how you feel, right? You got the car's gone, you got to pay the money. The outcome is how you feel and how you make everybody else around you feel. And so I think that when you get this and you realize it's something so simple as stumping your toe, right? And then letting that make your whole day bad. It's spilling your coffee on your shirt and then being angry about it for the rest of the day. Because those are reactions and you've chosen that response. But if you choose to laugh about the coffee spill and just go, oh, it is what it is. I'm glad I don't have a meeting today where everybody's going to see me. I'm just going to see my team. You walk in the door with spilled coffee and everybody says, what happened to you? Oh, I spilled my coffee, and everybody laughs and you just move on, right? And so it's how you respond to it. It can either ruin your day, something so small, or it cannot. And that's totally your response.
Yeah. And so, what really made it stand out for us, I think, is that we were such autopilot doing things and being very, I don't even know if it was reactive. I guess that's how you define reactive, but it's just responding quickly to things, like not giving yourself a moment to pause to think about how I want to choose to respond to this. It was just doing it, almost being very quick and fly off the handle, or say things that maybe you don't even mean, but very quickly when something happens, and then you can't take those words back, right? Like once it's out there, you can't take it back. And so, in this equation of an event happens, whether that's, your power going off in the morning and your hair's still wet, or you get stuck in traffic on the way to work, or you get to work and you're fired, like any kind of level of event, small things to really big life-changing things. There's a space between that happening and you responding. And so that's where that magic is, and the power that we have to make a choice about how we want to respond to try to steer that direction of that outcome. And I'd say for me specifically, I was just charging head first into things and just reacting under stress, doing it in a way that with no thought to the outcome, just sort of, spewing, or just responding harshly to things, or even not harshly, no ill intent, but just quickly to things without a thought of how I could have responded differently to make it even better. And so, that space of pausing before you react. So say your car gets towed and you go to look for your car and it's not in the parking spot that you left it in. Everybody's going to be upset by that. Of course, you're like, oh my gosh, my car's not here. But there's that space of time where you can choose to either go straight into action and go, okay, well, let me call the company. I'll get, and do the things you have to do with a good attitude. Or you can stomp your foot and be like, I can't believe they towed my car, and take no responsibility. Because it all comes back to our responsibility for our own reactions and responses. And each of us has 100% responsibility for how we respond. And so I think where I was in my life years ago was I had conditioned myself just to react with no thought of how it affected anything or gave me any kind of power or control. I was just reacting. And guess what? The outcomes were just coming with no thought because I was putting no thought into them. So, it really is taking that opportunity that's been given to you now that you can see that everything's an event, from getting mascara under your eye when you're putting your makeup on in the morning, all the way to, a divorce or something much more serious. And are you allowing yourself the time that you need to respond appropriately, or are you just jumping the gun and reacting?
And when you respond, you will see the outcome changes. You'll feel it. I mean, it really is. I mean, that response is about feeling too. And I look at it like this: you can walk into a room and everybody's lively and everybody's joyful, and you start responding and reacting negatively to anything, and you can suck the air out of that room almost instantly. You walk into a room where everybody's grumpy and angry. It's so hard for one person to walk in and be happy and upbeat and have this response of joy for everybody else to inflate. So when you respond joyfully, happily, that's the feeling, and everybody's getting to. When you respond negatively, that response is affecting everybody. And I think that and the negative responses affect everybody worse than the happy responses do, is kind of where I'm going with that is, so you've got to be really intentional about what you want. And we were not doing that. I mean, I was dropping a hat angry, how many times my kids have dropped a jar of milk on the floor and literally spilled milk. And I just lost my shit, right? I mean, I've been a long day at work. I'm tired. That was going to be part of dinner. Now I can't make what I was going to make. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for me to lose it. And prior, I would have. And now, and I'm not perfect. There are still certain times when I'm like, I can't believe you did that. But then I'm pretty quick to get it back under control. But now I'm like, you know what? That really stinks. We're going to have to regroup. But you know what? Maybe that's what we'll we'll order dinner in tonight. Or, all right, let me help you clean it up. It's not a big deal. And I see my children sometimes, the fear and the panic, even now, based on how my old reactions used to be. And as soon as I stop and respond, they can exhale. Like I have seen it happen. Like I have seen the difference in them, in their mannerisms when I react and when I respond. And it's hurt my heart before, because I've seen my little one go, okay, Mom, I didn't mean to. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, listen, it's just spilled sugar. We'll clean it up. Let's go get the shop back, whatever. And it's like, oh my God. Okay. Thank goodness. Because I spent so many years reacting. And I think when you start looking at it like that too, and all the people around you that pay the price, whether you respond or react.
Yeah, as you were talking, I remember when I was getting my undergraduate degree, I made a D in history, I think it was. I hated history. I hated it. I'd probably still make a D if I took it today. But I didn't tell my parents because I was so scared of their reaction to that, because I was an A student, right? And they had worked so hard to pay for me to go to college that I feared their reaction. And I remember, I don't think I told her. I think she found, like back then they sent it in the mail or whatever. And I think my mom found it. And I remember the phone call, like those things, like when people react in a negative way to something you've done, you hold on to it a little bit. Like you remember those feelings. And I remember being so disappointed, and like I felt so guilty for not like dealing with it and that kind of thing. But so I'm sure everybody can find circumstances, even if you don't see what you are doing, like how you react, you can see how others around you are reacting to things and how it makes you feel. And then you flip that a little bit to go, okay, now how am I doing the same thing to others?
That's right.
Because I've been in situations where people were mad at somebody else, but they're at dinner with me, right? And so that anger that they've got that they're not dealing with somebody else is now ruining my dinner, right? Because they're not able to flip the switch, or they're hanging on to how they reacted to something else, and then it just starts bleeding into the other parts of your life.
And that's huge. I mean, and so that's where our control is how we respond to events, big and small. And we're not saying that the death of a loved one, you're not going to be joyful about, but you don't have to, it's also maybe not crawling in the hole for too long and not living your life. I think there's going to be reactions, but when you can take a second and try just to respond a little differently, you're going to notice. I mean, it is very noticeable, but like Lori said, I mean, when you start noticing how other people's reaction makes you feel, which I've been in that situation recently, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's kind of like me screaming at a kid for spilling the milk. And I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. And it made me feel awful. Yeah. But then that's how my reaction makes other people feel. So it makes you question, how am I making people feel?
Yeah. So think about everything in your life, and think about things, maybe outcomes that didn't go your way, and maybe like retrace your steps to say, okay, well, what was the event that led to that? And how did I react to it? And how did maybe the way I reacted to it cause it to go not my way? Because I think that's how we started. It was like seeing everything in your day as an event. And getting to it, it's a skill, y'all. It's not something that just you flip a switch and it happens, but it is, you can start making those small choices of how you respond to things, spilling your coffee and dealing with that in a more positive way. I like you, I had employees that were scared to tell me about somebody that had not fulfilled their contract, and they were scared to tell me. And I had to take a good hard look at myself and go, why were they scared to tell me? And it was from past behavior where I'd fly off the handle, be like, well, have you done this? Have you done that? Almost in a punitive way versus really listening to what they were saying and coming up with a solution together. And so when I approached it that way, they were shocked and like, oh, I thought you were going to be so mad. And it's like, well, no, it's an issue, it's an event, and we're dealing with it. And so let's look at it a different way. And so you can choose, even if you've done it the other way, because Tonya and I both have, you can sharpen that skill and work towards looking at everything as an event and work towards sort of molding that response to get you to a more positive outcome.
Absolutely. So E plus R equals O. The event plus your response is where the outcome comes from. And so that response, that R, is where all the control is. So just start thinking about everything in your life as an event and ask yourself, am I reacting? Or am I pausing and responding? And if I'm reacting, what's that getting me? And if I wait and respond, what does that get me?